Every single minute, a child dies from malaria in sub-Saharan Africa. But what if the solution to protecting our most vulnerable has been hiding in plain sight all along? Mosquito nets treated with insecticide have long been the go-to defense for keeping malaria-carrying mosquitoes away during nighttime hours. But here's the problem most people overlook. What happens when babies venture outside during the day? How do we shield them from mosquito bites when they're awake and being carried around by their mothers? One innovative researcher found inspiration in an unexpected place: military uniforms. Ross Boyce, who now works as an infectious disease specialist and malaria researcher at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, used to don insecticide-treated military clothing during his time with the U.S. Armed Forces. For years, American soldiers have relied on these specially treated uniforms to fend off mosquitoes and the deadly malaria parasite they carry. This experience sparked a fascinating question in Boyce's mind. Could infants receive the same level of protection? Not through tiny uniforms, of course, but by applying insecticide treatment to the traditional baby-carrying wraps that mothers throughout sub-Saharan Africa commonly use to keep their little ones close. It seems sort of an obvious thing to do, Boyce explains, particularly when you consider the staggering statistics. Nearly every 60 seconds, a child younger than 5 years old in sub-Saharan Africa loses their life to malaria. What's more, the protective tools currently available, like those insecticide-treated bed nets we often hear about, only offer coverage while children are asleep in their beds. They provide zero protection during waking hours. But here's where it gets controversial. Are we doing enough with our current malaria prevention strategies? Or have we been missing a massive gap in protection all along? To test this seemingly simple, yet potentially groundbreaking concept, Boyce assembled a research team and launched a comprehensive, randomized controlled trial. The study took place in a rural region of western Uganda, where they recruited 400 mothers with children aged between 6 and 18 months. Half of these mothers, 200 in total, received baby wraps that had been thoroughly soaked in permethrin, a powerful insecticide. The remaining 200 mothers received wraps that had only been soaked in plain water, serving as the control group. To ensure fairness, every single participant also received a brand new insecticide-treated bed net. Throughout a 6-month observation period, the young participants made regular visits to local clinics every 2 weeks. During these visits, medical staff carefully examined them for any signs of malaria symptoms and conducted diagnostic tests. The research team also remained vigilant for any potential side effects from the permethrin exposure. Every 4 weeks, the researchers took the extra step of re-soaking all the wraps to prevent any possibility of the permethrin wearing off. That was probably overkill, Boyce admits with hindsight. But we really wanted to know if we have enough permethrin in there, does it work? The results? Absolutely stunning. It was a level of effect that was beyond even our wildest expectations, Boyce reveals with evident excitement. Over the 6-month study period, only 34 children in the permethrin-treated wrap group tested positive for malaria. In stark contrast, 94 children in the water-soaked wrap group contracted the disease. That translates to an impressive reduction of approximately 65% in malaria cases. It's a really large reduction, surprisingly so, observes Thomas Eisel, a malaria researcher at Tulane University who had no involvement in the study. The magnitude of this reduction suggests something important that many experts may have underestimated. Mosquitoes are biting far more frequently during daylight hours than Of course, achieving such dramatic reductions in malaria cases naturally raises an important question. What about safety? This was indeed a significant concern going into the study. Permethrin, while effective against insects, can potentially cause developmental delays, growth issues, and neurological problems if consumed in high concentrations. Fortunately, the major reductions in malaria didn't appear to come with major adverse effects during the experiment. When permethrin is treated on fabric, there's much less transmission through the skin, Boyce explains. Additionally, the babies were typically wearing clothing underneath the wrap, which meant there wasn't substantial direct skin contact with the treated fabric. That said, approximately 8.5% of infants in the treatment group did develop a mild rash, compared with 6% in the control group. A small but noticeable difference. Nothing is zero risk, and it's a trade-off that needs to be considered, Boyce acknowledges candidly. But we know getting malaria is not good for children either. Here's where the controversy comes in. Is exposing babies to a chemical insecticide worth the protection it provides? Some might argue we're trading one risk for another. Looking toward practical implementation in real-world settings, Boyce recognizes that retreating the wraps as frequently as they did during the controlled experiment, every 4 weeks, could prove impractical for families going about their daily lives. However, there's good news. This frequent retreatment may not even be necessary. Modern manufacturers have developed the capability to produce long-lasting permethrin-treated garments that maintain their effectiveness for extended periods without requiring regular reapplication. Looking ahead to the future, Boyce envisions a straightforward distribution system where mothers could receive a long-lasting treated wrap when they bring their babies to health clinics for routine vaccinations. This would provide an additional layer of protection during those critical early months before the babies become mobile and start walking independently. Regardless of exactly how the distribution and rollout might ultimately be structured, demand for these protective wraps would likely be extraordinarily high, predicts Edgar Mulogo, a researcher at Mbarara University in Uganda and co-author of the study. The excitement to use the wraps was just tremendous, he reports enthusiastically. He recalls hearing one participant express her satisfaction by saying, "When the children were under the wraps, they were not getting bitten." So here's my question for you. Should we be rapidly scaling up this intervention to save thousands of young lives? Or should we proceed more cautiously given the chemical exposure involved? Is the 65% reduction in malaria cases compelling enough to justify widespread adoption? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm genuinely curious whether you think this is a game-changing breakthrough or if you have concerns about the approach.